for a bite.
Looks good. Yeah, I'd like some.
Good catch.
Oh, wow.
What a throw.
Oh, it is good.
Yeah, it was quite delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime, man. Welcome to 100X Engineering, the show where you learn how to throw fruit across the United States and also how to become a 100X engineer who does not 10X, 11X, 100X things. I can't think because we just threw an apple from Utah to Ohio.
Yeah, takes a little bit out of you.
Yeah, no, I just kind of flabbergasted by what we just accomplished here. I'm your host, Carter Hesterman. This is my co-host.
With Drew Johnson. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's
out
been
for a week.
3 weeks now. Oh, yeah, you've been gone for like a month.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to be able to follow up Carson's performance. He is an awesome dude.
Whatever
I
you
will
were
gladly
doing
fill back in.
that kept you from being able to join the stream last time must have been awesome. But yeah, Carson did great. So shout out to Carson.
Shout out to Carson.
Banter topics. I missed Drew, but Carson was excellent. Sub-bullet. Carson is awesome. It's a little redundant. I think we covered that one.
You think you drove that one home? Yeah.
I think we drove it home. Yeah. Other
Probably
news
won't be the last time
in the
Carson's on stream. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, did you hear that Phil isn't my boss anymore?
Yeah, I did, but it's not that straightforward, right?
It's pretty straightforward. This man, I no longer report to him anymore. So.
Oh, that was too quick. I was about to say, put it back up.
No, I can put it back up for just a sec. Yeah, here, let's do this one. There it is.
In case people didn't know who.
Yeah, in case people don't know who Phil is. Phil's on episode 200X Engineering, circa, I don't know, April of this year. I was going to ask if you wanted to rank the jankiness of this game, of the game we played last week, but Carson and I took care of that. We played Sonic, and it was pretty janky, but it was fun. It was good.
I mean, I played it, just to see, and it was pretty well made, but it was janky for sure.
Yeah, definitely janky. I would say it's like a 7 out of 10 on the jankiness scale.
Nice.
The game today we're going to play is also pretty janky, but it was fun as well. Do you want to introduce our guest? Like a brief introduction, and we'll bring
Sure. I just met this guy, David. He is a quality assurance engineer.
So much, just a
master of QA. I know very little about him. Let's see.
Let's learn a little more about it.
Wait. He's excellent at drop shot in Rocket League.
Oh yes, David. Yes, yeah. Let's talk to him about drop shot.
Everyone, let's just bring him in here.
For David Osborne.
Hi, everybody. Drop shot connoisseur. Yes, that's
drop shot connoisseur.
I still barely know what that means, but okay.
For those of you like Drew who don't know what drop shot is, that is a game mode in Rocket League where it is similar to volleyball almost, where you got to keep the ball from touching it's like the floor is lava, but with the ball, and you don't want it to touch your side of the floor. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Hey, David, are you hungry? You want?
Always. Yeah, I'll have a bite of that.
All right, man. Here it comes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
shoot.
nice throw, Drew.
Gotcha. Yeah, no worries.
My bad. I was a soccer player growing up, throwing's hard.
Like solid crunch. Like it's not like there's like a Foley people back there like make the crunch sound now when David eats the
trying to provide a nice
100X
wide
ASMR.
range of audio experiences for everybody.
Yes.
100X ASMR. Am I right?
Now we're talking. Yeah, offshoots.
Yeah.
My name's David Osborne. I'm a QA automation architect at Entrada right now, and I have been doing QA and QA automation for a long time. I'm glad that you introduced me as QA automation and drop shot, because those are kind of my two skills.
And that's pretty much sums up everything we need to know about David.
That really does sum up everything you need to know. I'm a dad, and between dad and work, I don't have much time for drop shot anymore, but I'm really excited to be here.
It's a crime to the universe.
I know. Sorry.
I'm actually really happy with we have David here. David is excellent. We just threw an apple from Utah to Ohio back to Utah. David, you're based in Utah, correct, David?
Yep.
I asked that like I don't know for the
yeah,
team.
you do.
I know. David and I live next to each other, about 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little more. I think we can call that a wrap, though. I mean, that was a pretty impressive intro. I don't know if
good episode.
We peaked. Like, are you guys good if we call it?
Yeah, good
Let's
episode.
do credits.
Okay.
And I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm so
Man, we're so funny.
we're
We're so funny. It's gonna be great.
We got a question here from Max Dom, who will probably be kicking our butts at the game today. At David, do you play Rocket League hoops?
Yeah, man. A lot of respect for hoops. I'm not as good at hoops. I think the hierarchy is definitely drop shot, and then either the standard mode, soccer, or hoops. But hoops is more fun. There's just a lot more infuriating moments of jank in hoops, I think.
Is that where it's like a basketball hoops on each side?
Yeah, yeah. Good context clue reading. That's good.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
we played a lot of hoops too. Carter would come play with us. We used to work together,
Oh, yes.
and we'd play at lunchtimes and stuff. So
And
yeah,
then-
hoops is great.
Down here at the bottom of the ranking is Rumble. For those of you who've just given up and don't want
Rumble.
to play anymore.
Rumble is for when you want to play Mario Kart but you don't have it available.
The company only has an Xbox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, David and I worked together at Podium 5-ish years ago, I think. David has revolutionized quality assurance not once, but twice now, currently residing at Entrada. Not as a QA engineer. What did QA architect?
QA automation architects, and I've done that 3 times now.
3 times?
Yeah,
What is
the
the
last
third
3
time?
places.
Wow.
So I worked at a place called Podium, a place called Omni, and now at a place called Entrada.
That's right. I forgot about the Omni.
Yeah, Omni I wasn't at as long, so I don't know if I revolutionized or just made a mess of and then had to leave. But I've tried 3 times.
Hey, there are good revolutions, there are bad revolutions, as long as
Yeah,
it's 380 degrees
it was a
different
revolution, that's for sure.
from where it was.
We were on the right path. I just had to leave early.
Lest we tread into our topic too early, I'm going to introduce our game really quick so we can get that rolling, because that's why 1.2 of our 2.4 million viewers are here.
Right.
Let me show this. So we're going to be playing Commando today. Tyler, can we get a link dropped in the chat? But when you join the US West server and go over here to player, customize your dude or dudette, and then you'll go to join. I'm going to make a game here called J1. Super simple. You WASD keys to move and R to reload and left click to shoot. And if you've ever played Battlefield or Star Wars Battlefront, that's pretty much what this is, just in a 2D format. And it is going really slow and telling me to keep it friendly. So we'll see how this goes. Now it's just saying keep it. There we go. Disconnected.
All right, I'm in.
You're in?
Yeah.
That makes one of us.
Red team.
On the J1 game?
Let me see.
I don't even see the J1 game. You might have to. Yeah, let me try and
Let
make
me
it
back up.
Yeah, let's give this a whirl one more time. It might have been because I actually left my game open for like 45 minutes. All right. While we're loading this up, there we go. While we're loading this up, okay, David, so you're not a QA engineer, you're a QA automation architect. How does that differ from QA? I don't hear engineer in your title, so I don't actually know why we have you on 100x engineering.
That's true. That's why we ended early. You're the one who brought it back. I was QA automation engineer for a long time, but it differs mostly in that when I get to the work that I was hired on to do, I'm not writing tests day to day, and the framework level changes I'm making are not minor. They're like pattern alterations or implementations, or writing particularly tricky pieces of code, or they're like things where I've had an awareness of other stuff we've been building, like environments or reporting structures or whatever, and I need to go in and change our configs to point at those and to ingest those and that kind of thing. So, and then also because a lot of my time is like technical training and helping the people who are engineers do that job and be trained for that job and understand the patterns that we're implementing and all that. So, I think the commonality between everyone that has architect in their title, it's about the research and implementation and maintenance of patterns more than the implementation and maintenance of specific code bases per se. Although there's so much bleed, like when I was at Podium and we only had a handful of people when we started, we just did everything. And then as we hired people, we got to divvy up the responsibilities a bit more. But here, where I work now is, much, much larger. And so the roles are more specialized for that reason.
So you're not having to actually write the test, but you're instead kind of creating the enabling people to write tests and have the tests be meaningful, maybe, or like the supporting structure around it.
Yeah, exactly. So the framework and the basically everything that isn't a test, or directly auxiliary things like page objects and that kind of stuff, because that's synonymous with test.
Right.
But yeah, so it's mostly about that stuff, and then there's lots of like training. And a big portion of my day is still, because where I work now, we converted a lot of people over from manual resources to automated ones. So there's a lot of DMs still and small groups asking questions for clarification or debate or whatever. And that's totally fine. That's definitely within the scope of why I was hired. So
interesting. I didn't realize how much like supporting like infrastructure architecture there needs to be around. It's like, yeah, just write some end-to-end tests. And it's like, well, you got to figure out like where do they go when they fail? Like, how does it notify? Or like, how do you have it run? Do you run it on like a Docker image? Do you run it? There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that. That's something that we've bumped into whilst trying to build our own QA practices here.
And even within the scope of just the end-to-end test code base, whether you've rolled it into some other code base or whether it stands alone, which I prefer. There's so many like little decisions to make, all the way from what's the tech stack that you're using up to, how are you implementing your stuff that helps you not repeat yourself, and how are you, I'm getting totally destroyed in here. There's a lot of little things like that, right? And then there's stuff where generalized patterns meet what's happening at the company and what their needs are and what the foreseeable growth and change in the products you're testing are. And so you're trying to come up with patterns that are going to do what you need now, but also scale well into what's predicted to be the future. And, and like I said, a lot of it is bringing people along and making sure that everyone understands and is bought into and feels ownership in everything that's being done, so that it doesn't just have to be a few people who know what they're doing managing and trying to enforce things on everybody else, but rather everyone can be a contributor in a meaningful way, in a scalable way.
That's how does that change at like different sizes of companies and different sizes of teams? Because you mentioned at Podium, it was kind of just like you and a couple other people kind of running it and doing it all.
Yeah,
but
we need more.
Entrada is fairly different size, right?
Yeah. So, oh, nice. Okay, can we take it?
Also, I found out if you do down arrow or S while you're jumping, that's how you do the front flips.
Oh, I'm so glad you told me, because I was wondering how can I do more front flips, and now this is it right here.
Now we can play.
I saw David do 3 front flips, catching a flag.
I saw that I'm on the same team as Max, and like I need to like not do that because I'm on the same team as Max and Drew, and I need somebody to compete against. So,
Dave's done it like 3 times.
I'm on the blue team now. David, which team are you on?
Blue, man.
Blue.
Okay.
Who's on red?
He does not need help.
On red,
I'm playing at like 10 frames per second. Though,
so. Yeah, it's the jank factor is going to be high.
The jank factor is pretty bad here.
Yeah. Carter, what was the question you asked before I learned how to do backflips and front flips?
Yeah, which is an important life skill. What does QA look like at the different stages of a company? Like, how is it different for like a small company as opposed to like maybe a medium or large size company? Like, do you focus on different things? Can you be more granular?
So I think there's some stuff that's in common across the board. And really, I'd preface everything I say to response to any of these questions that like, I don't consider myself the authority on how anything goes. I just consider myself the authority on how it's going to go where I've been hired and agreed to be. Like, there's 100 different car manufacturers and they all do things a little bit differently, and yet they all sell cars. So I think there's lots of ways that could go, and there's lots of ways you could do it right. But for me, I think that the common things between any size of company are, what is the purpose of a QA team? I think that's true, or it's the same no matter how big the company is and no matter what they're working on. The QA team is there not to make sure nothing is broken ever, but they're there to inspire the confidence that is needed in the product development teams to iterate and move quickly and to be able to focus on the quality of just what they're changing. as opposed to having to worry that there are regressions or worry that, everything's going to be broken. So people talk about QA, and it means so many different things to different people. Some people see it as like a group that you throw stuff over the wall and they're going to make sure it's good. And that's not, I would never agree to be part of a QA team like that or to build a QA team like that. I would agree to take a QA team like that and turn it into a good one. But I think that defeats a lot of the purpose of a QA team. And I think it robs the product development teams of some of the ownership they should be able to have that is useful for them when they're trying to make a good product. So that's always the same. And then the differences in scale and the differences in what the company is doing at the time always tie back to that. So it'll be as different, there's 100 different answers depending on the 100 different companies you're thinking about. But that should always be the focus, is how do we get the best bang for buck and inspiring confidence for the product development teams to move quickly. So generally at a small company, it's easier to do it right the first time. And you can do things like not agree to test every possible path that exists in a product, right? And you can start up front by saying our stuff is not necessarily going to be lockstep with every change a product development team is making. And you can set the expectations and standards of we're here to end-to-end test just the most critical parts of your product, the critical path. The thing I like to use is, as a product owner, what would you want to be woken up about on Christmas Eve? That's where we start, right? Like if there's a thing that can be broken and it doesn't get fixed in prod for a week and a half, I'm not going to put an end-to-end test around that. That's not useful.
Yeah.
End-to-end tests are slow and expensive, and they have a high potential for problems and jankiness just because of the inherent nature of networks and browsers and all the complexity that goes into it. So it has to be really tight, has to be really useful, has to be really worth it for me to consider adding it to a suite. And so I keep getting destroyed.
You were distracted.
I talk with my hands. I talk with my hands so much that I'll take my hand off the keyboard to do this, and it's like, oh, what are you doing, David?
Now he's spawn killing me on the stream.
So I have a quick question on that, Dave, if you don't mind. So is that more for like an early stage of a QA development, like in teams, or is that kind of the end all? Like that should be your goal?
That's the start, and it's the priority, right? Which are two different things. So it starts that way, and that maintains itself as the priority moving forward. Then if you can prove to me, or if we can prove that like there are things that are critical that aren't currently considered critical, then they get added. Or if we can prove that like the cost in time and money and overhead of running and maintaining these tests is a cost we are willing to inflate in order to gain extra coverage, that's a company and business decision that's specific to the group. And then more things can be added. If you already have manual test cases, for example, you start with urgent or critical, and you then have the debate of, do we add high? And then you have the debate of, do we add normal? And at what point does it not become worth it? And how do we measure those things as we move forward? So I think that's just talking about end-to-end tests, though, because QA should also own, in my opinion, at least the implementation of API layer. Maybe you set up a tool that's very self-serve for the development team, so they're not blocked by you if they want to add a slew of API tests. But if you already have an env that lets you run end-to-end tests, then API tests should be a no-brainer, and you can get a lot more bang for your buck there. And then, of course, in conjunction with component testing and unit testing and that kind of thing, you can get a pretty good set of coverage where the costs are where they need to be for the benefit they're providing on that pyramid. So as you grow, you're just assessing what do we add where. Something broke, we need an end-to-end test. Okay, well, is that something you could have caught in that case with a unit test? No. Could an API hit have caught that? Probably is the answer usually. And if so, then you push it down to the lowest layer. So that's like the mentality and the strategy that I've tried to preach. And I think it works really well when it's implemented properly and when it's embraced by the group. It sometimes butts heads, though, with people who are really used to a QA team that just the development teams don't even necessarily have to know if what they're writing in that code bit is working or not, and they can throw it over and have that be what happens.
Yeah, that's just not a good environment. As someone who's worked on a team like that before, it's not fun.
Right. And I think QA becomes a very enabling factor of that type of mentality, right? They become a perpetuator of that damage. And I don't want to ever be part of that. So that's why
Put your foot down. But it sounds like you're a connoisseur of the testing pyramid. But I like that explanation for kind of the granularity. You got to get into at different stages. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And also, I want to call it I've killed Carter 3 times in a row. So
yeah, I want to call it the Carter's playing at like 3 frames per second here.
Hey, we all get 3 frames, so it's just part of the game.
Yeah.
I don't have an excuse. I'm so bad at this. I don't know if this is a bot or a real player, and he killed me. Okay. Dang it. Cosmo Carboni. Get wrecked, Carter. Would you, so in my head, like, we're kind of more in the stage right now where it's like we need to test like critical path, and then like, you know, because we have a pretty small QA team right now, looking to grow it. So if you know anybody, if you're looking for a job and you're a 100x QA engineer or even a 50x QA engineer, I'd love to talk to you. Yeah, we're focusing on kind of like what do we prioritize to test? And it's like, should we prioritize API testing or should we do the app right now? And right now I'm just focusing kind of exclusively on like, let's just get like end-to-end tests in the app for like the critical paths, because like that will cover, if the API is broken, we'll know about it if the UI is not working there. And if the UI is broken, I guess we'll know about that as well. But I certainly look forward to hopefully being able to get to where we can have some more of this comprehensive coverage. Let's talk a little bit more about what it looks like having like a QA, like the QA organization. Like, what is like the working relationship between like QA and engineering, or what is the ideal working relationship in your opinion?
So
like,
I think that even that depends on the size and priority and resources of the company. But I think that ideally it encourages that idea of just critical stuff is what we're focused on. And it discourages the idea of QA, you are an integral part to us knowing what's going on with our product. So anytime I see like your QA people that are added to your team are on that development team, I'd say no, they're not. They're on an SDET team, and they are a resource that is allocated to your team, or rather, your team is a focus of theirs on that team that they are on of SDETs. But it's not just I'm writing a new feature that equals 5 new tests for it, and you better have those written by the time I'm ready to push this to main or whatever. But rather it's, hey, I'll meet with you in your weekly planning or whatever, and which of these things that you're writing are changing or adding an ultra critical workflow. And if there's anything like that, that's my priority today. That's for sure the top of the list. If there's not, maybe it's lower risk or lower priority tasks for the SDET group, maybe updating or maintaining old tests, or adding lower priority coverage if that's been decided on as useful. Or maybe it's going to work on the API suite or the mobile suite or something else. I don't believe in QA as a blocker to the releasing of code, or rather QA additions as a blocker to the release of code. Obviously, I believe in QA testing blocking merges into main branches or blocking releases if you're in a waterfall system. Oh, geez. I just realized I haven't been playing again for 2 minutes.
It's okay. We got wrecked in the last one, and Drew is trying really hard to do the front flip kill on me.
Drew's over here sweating it, man. Like,
I'm just sitting here in silent winning. That's how these games normally go.
Oh, that was good though.
I did not know it gets so sweaty in here.
Yeah, no, it gets very sweaty.
At
what point, I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this question, because I think the process is around, there's a million different methodologies for how you can have QA be aware of like changes that engineers are making and like get ahead of that, shift left. But in practice, yeah, it's like difficult to find and very case dependent on what your team needs and like the size they're at. Do you typically believe that like QA engineers should be a part of like stand up to keep close tabs, or is it typically like, sprint planning, we get it, and then we check in like next sprint planning?
It depends on the size of the teams too, and it depends on how well the product teams are in control of like knowing the quality of their code as it's going out. And that's not just on the product developer necessarily. That's on the product owner who's clear with their creation of user stories and clarity of focus on the product. And it's also on the teams that are responsible for creating the developer experience, who have provided environments that can be used for local testing of a branch as it's in development. There's a lot of like puzzle pieces there. So there's a lot of times where you'll have months and months where the developers are not empowered to know what their code looks like before it gets to you. And in those cases, maybe you do get leaned on more heavily. And then maybe you do need day-to-day interactions with the teams that you are assigned to cover for. But yeah, I don't think that it should never be that this product team has a QA person on it, in my opinion. It should be this product team is one of the 3 product teams that this SDET or this QA automator is in charge of providing coverage to. And part of the beauty of that is you can scale way easier with that. If you have the systems and expectations and coverage in place for that to be the case, now adding a new developer is the cost of adding a new developer, not the cost of adding a new developer and half a QA person, right?
Right.
And releasing code is the cost of releasing code instead of releasing code and going through all these processes to get it out. So I think that it's better to be lean, and shifting left is important, but it's more important to only shift what's important left.
Love that.
And everything else doesn't get shifted, and maybe it doesn't get done, and that's okay. So I think that QA is bigger and more holistic than just what cases are you executing. Like, that's just manual testing mentality, which I don't like, but having a computer do it. And I think that misses a lot of the potential and a lot of the beauty of what can be done with a good QA automation group. I got to keep playing. Jeez Louise.
I just blew someone up.
That's me.
David, I think I've blown you up with my own grenades like 3 or 4 times now, and we're on the same team.
I'm not worried about it.
You're giving some good content though here. I'm getting some feedback from my viewers that this is good. Do you think QA should report out? So like, hot take. Also, I hate the phrase "shift left" just because I feel like it's like something that like executives use of like it's like, let's just shift left, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, great.
It's just it's buzzwords. I agree.
Yeah, it's like it sounds like they know the magic phrase.
Yeah,
they're one of us.
Can't we synergize?
It shows I'm not in leadership at that level because I didn't know what it meant. So you guys are catching me up to the lingo.
I mean, you can use it in like all sorts. It's like context kind of dependent. Like it generally means like shifting it earlier in the process, but yeah, again, it needs like clarification anytime somebody says it. In my opinion, maybe that means I don't know what it means.
Who's Max D?
I'm not an executive.
Who's Max D? And did you appreciate that grenade toss during my 3 frames per second?
Yes. Beat him.
Max is good.
Max is good at all the games we play. Well done, Maxwell. Should QA report up through engineering, through product? Should it have its own like kind of branch that it reports up through? What's your thoughts on that?
It should be part of engineering, right? Because the QA I believe in is all automated, and you're trying to be lean enough that you don't have too many people who only know how to like write a test script. You actually want engineers, people who know how to go in, and you can say, hey, we need a class that we can use to interact with a database through JDBC or whatever, and you can trust them to go do that. Or you can say, hey, I'm kind of out of touch with these 3 tools for mobile testing. This was my concern last time I looked at them. Will you go and spike on that and see if that's still the case or whatever? And you can trust them to go do that. So they should be engineers, and they should have a good understanding of multiple tools and languages and stuff, ideally. So they should go through engineering. And I think they should be their own unit. They should have managers that manage SDETs. And sorry, SDET is a term that's used. I don't like it.
Do you want to clarify what that is for those of us that don't know what SDET is?
Yeah, so it's the term I'm forced into using because of the industry we're in. Software development engineer and test, which is like, what the heck? That's the stupidest acronym, but that's what you'll see on resumes, and that's what you'll see on conferences and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's what we have to use. But they should report to people that just manage other SDETs. And that group should be managed by a director that reports to a VP that reports to the CTO, or that reports to the CTO. You know, however big the company is, but that way they get the treatment and resources and expectations of engineers, and that way they are seen as an auxiliary group in engineering that is there to support the product engineering, because that's the purpose of QA.
Right.
If they report up through product, I think there's some potential for the product leadership knowing and understanding and focusing on their more product-oriented reports and not really understanding the needs and intricacies of their engineering-esque reports. So that's my opinion on that.
I was going to say, like, one of the things I've chatted about is, like, yeah, for our QA, like, who do we want to have them roll up into? Because it doesn't make sense for me as, like, engineering manager, like a director, essentially managing engineers, to also manage QA. Like, I feel like they should have their own reporting structure that's adjacent to engineering, but not necessarily like, oh yeah. And I think this calls back. I like what you're saying of, like, you have a QA person, like, focused on each engineering team, but they're not necessarily a member of the engineering team. Like, they're not like that. They don't report up through, like, the same manager. They're, like, separate in, like, their own SDET squad,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
So
we call it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say we call it the SDET Guild because people don't like the word team unless it's another team, and they don't like the word group because that seems ephemeral. So we say we are a guild, just like ancient times, guilds would practice their skills and farm them out to groups that would pay for them. So that's how we feel about it. Cool.
I like that. The concept of having a report up through product is one that's interesting. I was talking about that with somebody a couple days ago. I agree. I think they should report through engineering, but the one point against, like, that for product is product defines what the product should do and, like, essentially, like, the acceptance criteria, which is, like, a good input for QA. But I agree. If you have engineering focus, it'll lead to better collaboration where you need it, I think.
And part of the reason I like that there isn't that like assumptive or direct connection between QA automation and product is because product needs to be communicating to the engineers anyways what it looks like and what it's supposed to do very specifically. It can't be assumptive in general at that level, right? Like, the product group goes to the engineering group and says, this is what we need. And so if that's already being done, then it can be received by QA people as well. And if it's not being done, it doesn't have to be QA that fights and argues for it, because how is anyone engineering anything if there's not, like, good descriptions of what's supposed to be going on? So, if you're doing QA automation right, it's a smaller group of actual engineers and not like a large group of manual testers. So why not have it go through engineering? And there's a lot of common dependencies too. Like, a product person isn't going to have the need of, hey, I need a Kubernetes cluster in the QA space in this region, and I need it to have, permission to allocate these types of machines, and this is the kind of networking speed I'm expecting, and I need it to be in the same zone as this test dem so that we can get higher speed connections. Like, a product group would never have that specific of a need, but engineering groups do all the time. So there's resources in place for that and access to that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, David, you mentioned how ideally, all this testing is automated and you're focused on automated testing and delivering new suites that cover your main paths, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming the answer is yes. And I just want to talk about when, but, like, are there ever cases where manual testing does become important and is a useful tool?
So I know why you say you assume yes is the answer. But
because
my answer, my answer is it depends. And if I'm being grumpy about it, the answer is no.
Sure.
But when I'm grumpy about it, it's usually because I'm being assumptive and being reductive. And it's probably always more nuanced than that. But
his name is the Grumpy Wumpus, by the way, so he is grumpy. Period.
Yeah, I think that there's probably lots of times where it makes sense to have manual testing be part of the process. But I think that if you're striving to do it right, there isn't an external manual tester ever. Like, the manual testing is what needs to be done for stuff that doesn't have test coverage yet, but it's being changed. And that should be something that a developer is empowered to do. He or she should be able to say, I've made this code on this branch. I need to be able to play with it in my local environment or in my cloud env that's provided my team or whatever. And they should manually test the things they're changing. And everything else should be concerns about regression and performance. And those things can be tested in an automated way. And if you're adding a manual QA group into that, it's usually because that's a fast, easy solution. And now that has blown out of proportion to the point where it's impossible to remove or expensive to remove. But that doesn't mean that it should be there. It just means that now it's a tumor that's fatal if we remove it. Not that you want tumors from the get-go. So sure. Not to say that manual QA testing are tumors.
A little brutal there, but
I used to be on a manual QA testing team too. You'll have no trouble finding work. I'm just saying, if you're going to hire someone like me to come in and automate your stuff, I'm going to advocate for, let's get it all automated. Why is there a manual testing group still? What need is really being met there? Can we prove with data that's a need? Can we show that we can meet 90% of that need in an automated fashion? And let's take those manual testing people and let's convert them over into automators so that their time and energy is now something that is useful forever and not just a one-off. Oh geez, I got carried away with my hands again.
Max is flying. I think it's Max. Somebody's flying around with a grenade launcher. I think.
Yeah, he's got like rocket boots and a grenade launcher. I see that. So
can you do manual testing in like a CI/CD environment? What would that look like if we're deploying like 6 or 7 times a day? You can't like go and like manually verifying everything. I guess
that's part of the reason my answer is no, because I feel like if a business decides that waterfall is what they need, then whatever. Maybe they have some reason for that. Maybe they have an extremely sensitive, customer base where any little change is enormously upsetting to them. And maybe they want waterfall for that reason. I would argue that still continuous integration and deployment is useful, and that simply you hide things behind feature flags, or you have your SREs who are on point who can enable and disable things for certain customers and groups. But that's maybe outside the scope of my domain. But I think that the ideal environment is one where a developer can take their code and make a PR, and then by the time the automated processes that are done running, they know whether or not it's okay to push that to a customer. And if they know that what they were changing works, then there's nothing else they should have to be concerned about. I mean, nothing else. They shouldn't have to fret about stuff that shouldn't be on their radar, right? And if it passes those checks, let's send it out to main. And that usually is synonymous with the customer in my experience, but not necessarily. But yeah. Testing shouldn't be such a long and manual blocker for customers getting the changes they need. And that makes everybody happy. Like, product teams are stoked about that because they can iterate within minutes instead of within days, right? And developers are stoked about that because they can make a branch and get feedback immediately about what's going on without even having to go to code review, or without even having to like have the embarrassment of, oh, I deployed to prod and I broke stuff, right? Because a lot of times people push to prod and break stuff, and they shouldn't have to know that it was going to break stuff. It's like some spaghetti code that they didn't write, that they're trying to make a small change, and who expected that this monolith had so many paths between here and there? That's not fair to them. So we should be in charge as a QA automation group of instilling confidence that that's not going to be their experience.
I like that. I think that you've made some really good points around QA. I've certainly learned a bunch here. We've got a couple minutes left. Thank you for your deep insight on QA architecture and automation, which,
welcome.
As the QA automation architect, I would expect you to be an expert on that, and you have proven so. Thank you also for joining me in the slog that has been just getting our butts handed to us over and over.
Right. Let's go, red team.
When forced to choose between doing well on the game or not making an absolute fool of myself, I've chosen the latter.
I think that's why.
Teach their own.
Teach their own. I made my decision. I gotta lie in the bed that I've made.
You're not the one sharing your screen, so not everybody has to watch you just get destroyed.
True, but I feel like I'm doing so poorly, everyone knows I'm getting destroyed because they've had a hand in it.
And that's an appropriate thing to go out on. David, our closing question / statement. Either A, say something profound. B, What would define a 100x QA engineer? Or C, answer both.
I'll answer both. I'll start with the one I know I have an answer to, which is what makes a 100x QA engineer. I think that there's lots of things that like make a Q automation person useful, and that's like knowledge and experience with the tools and the languages and those kinds of things. But I think what really elevates a person is understanding that vision of like what QA can or should be, and not just falling prey or falling in line with what people in other departments and teams expect out of QA, but championing and advocating for the vision of how it could be. And if you combine that with good skills, that's 100 times more useful than 100 people with good skills, but none of the vision and none of the resolve to champion for it. So that's my answer to that.
Nice. Solid answer.
And then something profound. Let's see. I've been thinking a lot lately as a dad about kind of the ephemeral nature and the transitive nature of life experiences, and how like there will be a time where I pick my daughter up for the last time. Even not because anyone's going to die anytime soon, but she'll be too big and she won't wait to do that anymore.
You can't really pick your teenager up.
Yeah. There will be a time where like my son says, "I love you, Daddy," for the last time. And that will be that. And then even if he tells me how much he loves me, it'll be Dad, or it'll be Father, or it'll be just "I love you," or whatever. So as I've been doing my daily mindfulness practice, I've been trying to really live in the moment and really appreciate those little things, because those are the kind of things that, in my opinion, they don't just make life worth it, but that is life, right? A lot of this other stuff is auxiliary to that. It's to create and facilitate a life where we can have moments like that. And it doesn't have to include children, but just times when you're present with experiences that are meaningful to you. And that if we facilitate such a life and then aren't present with those moments, like we're literally wasting all of our efforts and energies in life. We're wasting our lives. So I've been trying to really be present with those types of moments and really appreciate them and taste them and live in them. So if everyone walks away having remembered nothing but be present in life's most meaningful experiences, I think that's way better. That's the best advice I could give, even more than anything that has to do with QA.
With 100x QA engineering.
Yeah.
That was exceedingly profound. I feel inspired.
Very deep.
Yeah, that was great. David, thank you for dropping that on us. That was a guy. There's nothing else to say after that. Let's give a round of applause for David Osborne, everyone. Thank you for joining us, David.
It was awesome having you, David.
It's been my pleasure.
We will talk to you again soon, and have a good one.
Okay, see you guys.
Kick you off. And he's back. I'll let Tyler kick you off. Welcome back. He's back. I watched a video. I can't remember what it was. It was like one of like the reels or something, but it was like somebody playing Minecraft, and they were like feeding the dog in Minecraft, and it was just like staying in there, and they like changed his bowl every day, and like in the game. And then it just ended up being like, one day you will place your last block. And it like got me. I was like,
"Yep, I've seen that." And like the house deteriorates, and like the weather, and like it's really sad. It hits you in the feels, just like David just did. Thanks, David. That was great.
I like the approach that David took to it better than the Minecraft dog one, though. So that was a little more uplifting. The Minecraft dog one was like, one day I'm gonna like die, and I'll be like, the last block I placed in Minecraft was like the TNT I accidentally put that blew me up or something.
I guess we need to play Minecraft on the stream.
Yeah, I don't know if my computer can handle it. If it can't handle Commando it running that. Next stream, I missed having this. We had 3 weeks since our last one. Since we was a 5-week month, we was on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. Next stream is on Tuesday, the 27th of September. I may be here, I may not. We got to figure that out because I'm having a baby this month. So here's hoping that everything goes well there. Drew, anything else we want to chat about before we wrap? Should we rate the jankiness?
Yeah, let's rate it. I think our ratings are going to be different, though. You had a much different experience than I did. I had more frames for sure. I was just messing with you. It wasn't laggy on my end.
I have to run the streaming software and do it, and the streaming software does not work well on my Mac.
I think it was Max that figured out you could use the jetpacks on your feet, and after I figured that out, it was definitely less janky. I'd probably get like a 7.4.
Are we saying like a high score is like jankiness, like it's really janky? Or
Oh, wait, true. Yeah, so a high would be janky. So maybe I'll give it more like a 5.4 jankiness.
All right. I mean, high score and jankiness makes it like more in line with like 100x branding. I would say it's like binary question. Was this like on point with the 100x brand?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I would agree. Thank you everyone for joining us on the game. Thank you for your comments and for joining us here today. Don't forget to smash the bell or the like and subscribe button, or if you're on LinkedIn, don't forget to retweet or share this with everybody, even people that aren't in engineering, so that your train conductor friends are like, 100x engineering. Yes, I am an engineer. And then they'll be playing the game with us. So that'll be great. Actually, somebody had an idea for like an April Fool's Day or something. We should have like a train engineer on and interview them.
That would be awesome.
I'm actually here for it, so stay tuned. Yeah, with that, I think we're good to wrap up. Should we roll the credits now?